Hello and welcome back to the True That Show. We so appreciate you coming back on to hear us and our amazing guests. And Caroline, I think it's Christmas for you today, maybe a little bit of Easter, but Sam MacDonald, who is our guest today, comes from Candyland, one of your favorite lands. And, you know, if you haven't listened to this show long enough or read our book or what have you, you know that Carolyn and I love encouraging wealth accumulation because you are lifepreneurs and you are entrepreneurs and you are out there doing life and you are rocking it. And so we have a gentleman on today who is famous in the land of chocolate and famous in the land of wealth accumulation. I mean, I want to hang out with this guy every single day. So Caroline, as the self-proclaimed lover of chocolate and a little bit of popcorn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, very well. And talking about my popcorn here, I now went to the 6 groceries, the closest to my place, which is like about a 50-kilometer radius, and they're all out. So I'm gonna post a picture soon of like wanted. No, besides that, yes, I'm absolutely a chocolate lover. But lately I've been going more towards dark chocolate because trying to mix my passion with a bit of health. But it's funny because when we were talking with Sam before, so he left the chocolate industry 2 years ago, and he said that in the last 2 years, side note, he lost 40 pounds. So which makes me think, thank God I've never worked in the chocolate factory or chocolate factory. I'm thinking about, I'm different movie here, but I would have gained a lot of weight because right now, I can still control myself, but yes, chocolate is quite something. And what about you, Deb? You are a person who never touched chocolate because you love to be different.
Well, the interesting thing is that I used to work and I used to manage a high-end late-night dessert restaurant. And so I used to eat a lot of everything. I used to bake and eat, and I used to do all of that stuff until the one day when I just was unwell and someone introduced me to a naturopath, and I was in my 20s. I'm like, a natural what? Like a what? Like, and they're like, oh, you need to go to this naturopath. I have this one, and there was this one naturopath in Vancouver. And so to please my boss, because I was just like not at it at work, I went there and they said, oh, you've tested positive for being allergic to sugar and wheat and dairy and spinach and strawberries. And I'm like, excuse me, what? Like, I don't care about what? Sugar? Because I was like you. That's why we're so bonded, because I can understand you. Anyways, long story short, they said no more sugar as of today. And I'm like, no. He goes, okay, 24 hours. In 24 hours, you got to drop it. So I went on this this vengeance of sugar everywhere. I remember going to, yes, it's the MCD word, because they had these like shakes and they tasted like St. Patrick's Day. And everyone know what I'm talking about? And I ate everything I could, and I couldn't do it all in one day. Like I had pancakes, and so I had to go a whole other day and I ate everything that I could. So I do know the experience of loving it. And now I just don't. So yeah. But that's
I wish I knew what you were talking about, the MCD, but I don't. I think I was a bit too young back then. I'm not even sure.
Oh,
probably still in diapers or something like that.
oh.
But anyway, how about we talk about our guest, because he will bring something very interesting to the table. He will bring, a lot of knowledge and wealth. He's actually like renowned as a wealth specialist. So I want to introduce to everyone Sam MacDonald. Hello, Sam.
Hello, I just unmuted myself. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So 40 pounds, eh?
Yeah, I got to tell you, all I did was stop eating chocolate. And no offense to chocolate, but I still have it in my veins. But I still got another probably 40 to go. But it didn't treat me well in my earlier life, for sure, from a weight perspective.
So it's kind of a side question that has nothing to do with the subject, but I'm just curious, to lose 40 pounds, how much chocolate were you eating every day? I just want to gauge myself, like what's the...
I was a vice president of sales and marketing. From a marketing perspective, There was a lot of R&D, a lot of new products. I always had R&D departments that reported into me. So they were always coming up with new ideas, new concepts, and I was asking them for new things. So I was taste testing a lot of products almost every day. I actually calculated it out to be about the equivalent of 1.5 chocolate bars a day for 30 years. So you figure that out. It's an incredible amount of chocolate and fat, for sure.
Well, some of us are jealous. Some of
It is
us are
sinful,
thinking
but
like, well,
I
there
gotta
you
tell you,
go.
I wouldn't have changed a thing. I loved it. I loved that industry.
Awesome. And what brought you to this chocolate factory? How did you end up in that chocolate factory?
Oh man, no. I went to my education was always in finance. Passions were always in finance. But you know, life got in the way. I got married young and answered an ad out of the newspaper and took a job as a sales rep for a multinational chocolate company. And I worked my way up in that company for a dozen years. And you know, I just never went back because I really enjoyed the fun and I mean, in the chocolate industry, you're selling fun. You're not selling you're not selling toothbrushes. You're selling fun, and it was a great industry for that. And worked my way up in that market, and then decided to get into business for myself.
Awesome.
So,
And go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that's an interesting piece. That's where you know, when I listen to you talk about your history in terms of, you know, all this experience that's brought you to where you are today, I think that's a very interesting twist. And I think it's something that our listeners really have either lived through or want to live through. And maybe after listening to your experience, they're going to be more excited about that. But it's very interesting after having clearly a successful career in a sector to go back. You know, you didn't just go into a venture for 3 years or 5 years or try a business with a business partner and it kind of didn't work because it kind of didn't work. You had extensive research in all arenas of knowing what it's like to start at the bottom all the way up to like VP, and then had that day where you had an option to make a change in your life and come out of that into something else, and then go into the world of entrepreneurship. What was that like?
well, my family has always been entrepreneurs. My father had always owned his own business or two or three, and my brother was also entrepreneurial. So I ended up, you know, the entrepreneurial bug bit me after a while, and I just decided to help my father out, and I took over one of his businesses for a while and bought him out. Did that for about 5 years, and then decided that I had had enough of that, and sold it, and decided to move into back into chocolate because the chocolate was still in my veins. So I ended up out west here in Vancouver. All of that multinational stuff and business stuff was in Ontario. So I ended up back out west and working for another chocolate company as a vice president, someone that was looking for international and multinational level experience. A smaller company, but not too small, and they were based out of the U.S. So I worked for them for 6.5 years as a vice president of sales and marketing, and developed some great brands and did some great things, and moved on to that again for another entrepreneurial bite. Decided to get into business for myself again as a sort of a broker, sales and marketing for other business owners and things that were trying to launch their products, smaller businesses, to try to help them come into Canada, or Canadian companies to go into the US. And I did that. Actually, I'm still doing that kind of as an on the side business to help people out. But for the most part, that was a business that I did for 5 or 6 years. And during that time, I developed a big social media presence in the packaged goods industry and the candy business. all of the time keeping my hand in the finance world, the world of EBITDA. Then I took one of my contracts, turned into a full-time role as another vice president of sales. So I was there for not long, 3 years, and then they got bought out. At the end of the day, decided, you know what, I'm in my 50s. It's time to maybe follow that passion. I took the package and decided to go back to school and become a finance person. So I had it in my family, and my son-in-law was in the business, and my son wanted to be a CFA. So they were always bugging me, telling me they thought I should follow that original dream and go back into becoming a financial planner. So I went back to school, and I'm actually still going to school in some areas to better myself. You always have to do that.
I really commend you for that. Because
Thanks.
I've thought a few times about, going to do my MBA just to say that I've done my MBA.
Yeah.
And I cannot picture myself on
It's not easy. It is not easy. And you're not nearly as old as I am, but I'll tell you, when you get to be my age, going back to school is not easy.
Well, I think at any age, like once you've tasted the freedom of not having to answer anyone, because for me, like school also means like going back to when we were kids, being told, do this, don't do this. But
it's not like that, but it is a challenge.
Yeah.
Especially when you're the youngest person in the class, you're the youngest person you're the oldest person in the class, sorry. And you're in a class with a whole bunch of 20-somethings. And I mean, everybody's trying to start a career in that industry, like I was originally planning to do, 30 years ago.
Let's talk about this 2 seconds though. Like, what was the dynamic, having to study with 24 years old when you were mid-50s?
Yeah, well, you're not really studying with them. It was, I mean, you were in class, you were listening, you were, they looked up to me like because I mean, I have a wealth of experience, and I was relating some of the things that they were trying to teach us with reality. And in a lot of times, I helped them focus on, well, here, that's a great concept, but I got to tell you, in reality, in a business world, this is the real reality and what they're looking for and how they can help. So I think I helped out a lot of those 24-year-olds at the same time as learning the technical side of it myself. So, and that's why I focus my business now. So I'm trying to focus my business on the business side of helping, business owners and executives and things with their company focus, their company financial, and looking for a seat at their corporate table, if you will. And at the same time, helping them, with employee benefits, income protection, that kind of thing, as well as helping them set up, estate planning on a personal level. That's where I know a lot of people in that industry, in the industries that I've been in over the years, and primarily at that level. So I thought that I'd have be able to tap into that market and grow my book of business in that area. It seems to be working well. I'm signing up quite a few corporate business owners, doing a fair amount with retention benefits and quite a bit in the insurance side, helping them figure out their way through it. We do, investment loans, all that kind of sort of thing. So yeah, I think it's exciting.
Well, Sam, that's one of the reasons why we were so excited about having you on, is because it's an area, money is an area for people in business many times as they're making their way, that ironically can get confusing or diverse, or the relationship that someone has is the passion with what they do. And, we've heard a lot of that, if they taught finances in school, if they had taught, entrepreneurship in high school, and if they taught the elements of all the entrepreneurship. It's interesting because I have a teenage son right now that's like, I'm going to open my own business. And I'm like, have you heard of a business plan? And he's like, can you do that? And, and he's 17.
Yeah, come on, Mom.
It's a very fair question. Right? It's a very fair question. But I think both Caroline and I have had that, some experience of knowing what it's like to have, like you said, someone sitting at your table. And as a solopreneur, as someone who's got to make all the decisions, there's no way we can know everything about everything in our business. And having the relief of someone like yourself coming in and highlighting something that people aren't even very familiar with. I mean, it's very rare. We sit down with entrepreneurs. They're like, yeah, I have business income protection. And I was just sharing with you guys earlier about how I think that's, for some people, that's not even a concept. Like, can you talk a little bit about that? Like, someone's like business income protection, because many people, the business is so reliant on them. It's so reliant on them, and they're so focused on keep bringing it in and taking care of every one of the players. I think a lot of times business owners really forget about themselves.
Yeah, no, it's true. People get too much of their money all in one thing, too much focus that they haven't hedged it into different. You've probably heard of balanced, having a balanced approach. Well, business owners have a problem with that because they get so into their own thing that they don't do that. I think before I get too much into that, I would like to touch on how, you mentioned it, that it's a lot to know. Well, it's a lot to know for me as well. It's a lot to know for anybody, any one person. And which is why I joined a team of sort of a franchise, if you will. It's more of a group, but I called Freedom 55. And I joined this group because they have a team of specialists that help me. So if I have a client that is particularly looking for how I can save on tax dollars, how can I shelter some tax, how can I I need to do a health and welfare trust for my employees. Something that is particularly of interest. It's my job to figure that all out and kind of be that person to try to help them, direct them in the right way. But as soon as they have decided on, or as soon as I recognize an opportunity, I can bring in specialists that are particularly good at what those things are. So yeah, it's hard for any one person, even in their own business. Nobody knows their business better than the owner. But it's such a complex world, and every company is different, and every situation is different. So having finding a seat at the table to listen and understand what their situation is and come up with credible ways to help them is kind of what I do with my team of people. So yeah, I have specialists in taxation, specialists in savings, specialists in insurance, and specialists making sure that they can their income is protected, or and things like that. I have all those specialists, a couple of dozen people that I can draw on to help me get there.
And what I find super interesting in that, and there's a reason why we call you wealth specialist, is that you don't only have all the knowledge that is needed for finances and wealth, but you have experience behind you that is absolutely priceless. It's something that you cannot gain in school. You can only gain it over the years. And I mean, having been in huge positions like you in corporate, being the vice president, the vice president usually overlooks everything. It's not, sure. They need to know about everything. So I think you're an amazing resource to actually bring in a company and say like, hey, how can we improve finances, improve this, improve that, because you have all the experience and knowledge that backs your
and I think that was what was coming out in the schooling part, and it's coming out now in business. So when I'm in a meeting, even with a specialist, the present, I'm talking to the business owner, and I'm, and he has a certain situation, and I relate that to some of the experiences that I've had, and I can pull out and just say, you know what, I think that's not necessarily the right direction for this business. I think maybe we should look at something in this direction, which, a 20 something year old financial advisor wouldn't have that experience. So yeah, I think it's very, my experience in my past as a business owner and as a business executive has definitely helping me understand and definitely help me help business owners succeed. That's my biggest, I think my biggest thing, because I got into it late, later in life with all that experience, I think it's a very big positive that I add to the table.
Experience is priceless. And that's the one thing I will always keep. And I've been in different businesses and things like that. And for me, it's like, we need to keep the experienced people around, because really there's, you reduce your chances of mistakes, and you reduce your risk just by having experience behind you. But I will let you go back to the income protection part, because
Yeah, sure.
I'm really, as a business owner, I'm really, intrigued by that.
Okay. So income protection, there's a couple of ways to do that. I mean, insurance, understanding, key. If you have, every company has a key person. It may be yourself. It may be an engineer that you've hired. It may be an accountant that you just couldn't survive without in your business, whether it's a small business or mid-sized business or even a big business. Every business has a key person. It may be, like you say, it may be yourself, it may be your spouse. And so that person's income is very important to you. So there are insurance processes that would enable you and that person personally to survive if they got critically ill, or if they passed away or whatever. So that could damage your business completely. So your business has the opportunity to buy or to look for solutions within your business, in order to be able to ensure that person that if they get sick, the company is covered. The company is covered, not just the person is covered, but the company is covered, in order to be able to replace that person without skipping a beat, or train somebody, or even hire a couple of people to do that one key person is doing. And there are ways that, there are better ways that if it's yourself, that if you don't get sick, you could get all your money back. So it's not a big thing. There are riders and processes, but there's also, that's from the insurance side, but there are ways, to do things from on the finance side of it, that is very important. Like partnership agreements. If you have a partner in your business, tax laws and estate laws are very complex, and they vary by province. But as an example, if you have a partner, and that partner, you each own 50% of the company, or you each own 50% of the business. It may not even be in a corporation, but you have a partnership agreement that, basically everything is 50-50. And if that person dies, then you would have, you would assume those shares, or you would do whatever. But if that person is married or gets married halfway through the thing, their business shares by default go to their wife or to their husband. So there are, and your will can cover so much, but there are things that will help you, because you don't know that you're going to be able to all of a sudden be a partner with this person's spouse. You may not be able to get along with it, and your entire company is in jeopardy. So you need to be prepared for that. And there are ways around that. And if anybody has that situation, I'd be more than happy to help them understand how to get around that. And your lawyer, your legal team will have to draw up a partnership agreement, a buy-sell agreement, they tend to call it, but they can be fully funded through an insurance program. So that if your partner does pass away, you can just, the insurance company will pay the spouse and you maintain 100% you maintain that other person's shares. You get back all those shares. There are ways to do that just to protect yourself, because you never know what could end up happening. People get sick all the time. And there are ways to do that. So yeah, that's basically it. There are umpteen million ways to do that. To do that from an income protection perspective.
Well, Sam, I think what you just did is, I think, incredible in the sense that you took one out of, I think, about 20 or 30 things that I know that you do, and did a breakout. I call that like a breakout, where you actually break it out and show people all the multifacets of just that one thing, which I think then highlights why someone needs to have you on their team as that person that they can call and run things by as they're building their business, or they're exiting their business, or how about when you're thinking of building a business? How about that? Because there's so many of us, look, entrepreneurs, we're 2 feet in, like we're ahead of ourselves. And I think that it's with your experience that you come to the table that gets people to think about those things prior, right? Think about those things prior.
Setting it up properly in the first place is critical, but it's never too late to adjust if you don't have insurance systems set up in place. Like I mentioned before, there are return of premium issues that can help you get, so it's not as expensive as people think. And there's tax avoidances. Setting up a holdco for, can move money around, can move risk around in order to avoid is the wrong word, but it can be like a deferral or a shelter for tax and enable you to pay corporate tax versus personal tax. There are ways around all the different elements of doing things in a business that is never too late to set it up properly. It just needs to be set up with a legal team, with your accountants, and with your financial advisor.
Sorry, I really liked what you just said there. It's never too late, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, but that well, Deb and I were in partnership, but it's there's work to be done. But a lot of people, when we're set in our own ways, we're like, well, it's been working like this for 10 years, so I'll just keep going. But it's funny because the universe is sending me messages these days, because I'm hearing all of this. And I love what you're saying. It's never too late to actually do it right. It's not because you've been in a situation with a partner for 10 years that you shouldn't have it revised and be like, okay, this. And even if you're a solopreneur, same thing, have it revised. And I imagine that you also offer that, Sam, to just consult for someone to say like, hey, how is the state of everything here? And what needs to be fixed? And what's okay and what can be improved,
Yeah, it's having a seat at the table. What I mean by that, so you pay a lawyer a lot of money, you pay an accountant a lot of money to do, to set those things up. Currently, I don't charge for those services. The only thing I ask is that if you end up having to get insurance or having to do programs through investment programs, that you look at my process first. That's all I ask. It's because I get I basically get paid from the companies that I work with, and because I'm a broker, I have I have access to, I'm not tied into any one particular insurance company. I'm not tied into anything in that sense. So I can, you know, look at all the different aspects and what's right for your company at the time. So it could be, you know, it could be any one of 10 major insurance companies or major investment portfolios.
So Sam, that takes us to, I can hear in people's, you know, there's clocks going on, you know, what clocks, I mean, there's cogs going on. People are, I'm sure, wanting to get in touch with you, because who wouldn't want to get advice like that? And so where is it? We're going to obviously have your information below about where you can be reached. But if you want to share anything in particular, I know that you've got a beautiful website that maybe you want to just share with our listeners right now, where they can go directly until we post your information. That would be helpful. You might have to unmute yourself first. That probably would help there.
There you go. First of all, my last name is spelled with an A. It's M-A-C. So you can't get through this. It's at sammacdonald.ca. That's my website. They can find all kinds of information on there and can contact with me there. But you'll have all my contact information as well. My email address is sam.macdonald@freedom55financial.com. Anyway, there was one other thing I wanted to touch on that is really important. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the world of employee benefits, employee retention benefits, is an ever-changing one, and it's going through some major changes right now with something called health and welfare trusts. You know, a traditional company may have, and a company's size, it could be 3 people, it could be, you know, 500 people, employees, but you know, health and welfare, health retention benefits is important for, you know, to keep your employees, to keep good employees. It's an important piece. And if you don't have some, give me a call. We should be able to find the right solution for you. But if you do, traditional programs have been, you know, health and dental, you know, covering your prescriptions, covering your massages, your practitioners, and your dental, things like that, right? So, you know, programs that range from having, you know, an initial 80-20 thing where the companies, you know, the insurance company's going to pay 80%, you pay 20% as an employee. But from a company's perspective, there are also things called health and welfare trusts now that can turn it into a more of a tax savings for the employer. And it's called a health and welfare trust. And it's basically a personal spending account or a health spending account for your employees. So, you know, it helps you stabilize as an owner, it helps you stabilize your expenses, where basically, I'll just pick a number. Let's say you're going to give your employee $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year to spend on whatever they need for prescriptions, for dental coverage, for practitioners, or for bus passes, if that's what you want, for babysitting fees, whatever is going to help maintain your employees' happiness and keep them from jumping ship for more money. This is something that is key in today's day and age. So this health and welfare trust thing is something that basically replaces some elements of insurance, group insurance, or it can in some cases replace it completely, or it can just supplement the practitioner piece if you're, you know, whatever. There are different elements that it could just replace the dental piece, but the more you use it, as a company, as a business owner, it can definitely limit limit your expenses, enable you to budget for your expenses on an annual basis. You know, if and limit things. You can limit things. It enables your clients or your employees to have freedom that they wouldn't normally have. So I think that's important that we should, you know, if anybody has an employee benefits package, they should give me a call and we can talk about different ways to do that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. That's a excellent piece. Caroline, I think we should give each other a freedom package. What do you think? I think me and Caroline should.
I think it should be earned up.
Sorry?
Oh, here we go. It's called throwing the pot. I learned a new thing.
It should be earned. I'm not just going to sign off on something like that. But
I would like to add that as a small business owner, your spouses and families could be involved and included in those, right?
Yes, well, that's why when we meet someone, when each of us meets someone, the other one has to approve.
Oh, you have to get there first. Oh, okay. Caroline single, point to note.
Okay. How to take a super serious subject and just make it like not serious at all.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, right? So this is a great business. I got to tell you, it's a great industry, and it really helps. But it's not chocolate.
Yeah.
It's not a fun industry. People don't like to talk about finance. They don't like to talk about their money. That nobody wants to admit that they don't know what they're doing. Nobody wants to buy insurance because they don't even want to think about dying, but it's reality. So, you know, and when you're an advisor in this versus an advisor in chocolate, yeah, it's not as much fun, but it is so much more serious.
Yeah,
and
but
I gotta tell you,
in 10 to 20 years, Sam, it's going to pay off, because instead of watching people dying from diabetes,
huge.
You will help their family.
There are so many things that I didn't do as a young person that I wish I had done on the finance side. Now that I know.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that you touched on, I think, Caroline, early on, or maybe it was Deborah, about it was Deborah, about her son. They definitely should teach this stuff more in school. This is definitely a grade 11 or 12 course. It's a full course to understand, better the whole finance, insurance, and taxation, and all of that sort of thing. They touch on it in a small way, but it's definitely something that should be a full course offer.
I agree, because I have 2 of my kids right now that finished their high school. And when I talk about budget, they're like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, are you gonna, deposit part of your money into savings? They're like, no, you'll be there to pay my stuff when I need something,
The days of people having, long-term pension plans, which we can still do for companies, but in reality, people, it's becoming less and less. I mean, people don't stick with companies for 20, 30 years in order to get a lifetime pension anymore. So they need to do their own planning. It is reality.
So I think we should see a future podcast on financial planning for younger or not so younger people.
Sure. I have been considering, and I've done a couple of webinars already. But yeah, we could use your platform for some of those in the future for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And again, people, if you want to reach Sam, sammacdonald.com is .ca is his website. MacDonald is MAC.
Correct.
And a wealth of information. You're really a wealth specialist. But for me, what I really love is that you have all the knowledge, but you also have all the life experience to back everything that you're actually, recommending and everything. So Deborah, I will let you close, because I know you like to have the last word.
Oh, there it is. See, Sam, I told you. So now you can see why we need something. Now you can see why we're both single. Anyways, it was, absolutely, I concur on what Caroline shared. And in all honesty, I think, I'm going to finish it off with something nice. I think you talking about partnership agreements, which has been interesting, a conversation for us, right? And we've been, we've worked through our own businesses and we've worked for other companies and what have you. And I have to say that trust, when I listen to you talk, it's like, you need someone like Sam in your corner that you can trust. And one of the reasons why me and Caroline can josh the way we do and love on each other the way we do and the funny way we do is it's really important to trust the people that you have in your circle. And I think that's one of the things that you get through experience that you don't have when you were younger, right? That you don't have that when you were younger. And so having people like yourself that you can actually have those conversations with, building a business with someone like Caroline, who, we're like, we got each other's back and we feel really solid in that, even though it may not look like it sometimes, people, we do love each other. But having someone like yourself that has your back actually as a business owner makes you feel like you can stand stronger, make different decisions, because you know that you've got someone that can concur financially, which is really, come on, why you're going into business. You're going, a lot of times I've gone into business out of pure heart, hasn't really converted maybe over in my early years into money the way that it needed to, so I could keep sustaining. So if you want to have sustaining relationships, and I think that's the biggest part about it, is having someone that you can trust and kind of go in the game with. And so when I hear you talk, I just, that's the word that keeps coming to me. And obviously why you would make decisions, like you said, making decisions early on about going into business, that you would even go into business. We're all talking about partnerships and marriages and we're having a good joke about it, but it's a big decision, right? So it's nice to have someone, like you said, sitting at your table. So I just got so much myself out of this. I'm like, I'm just happy myself, and I'm sure so are our listeners, and so are the people that are watching and will be seeing this interview. So I thank you so much for taking your time today. I know you're very busy. I know that you have a great client roster and you're looking to add to that. And so Caroline, I'm not going to always say nice things at the end of a presentation or a podcast, but here we go. It's been a great pleasure to sit with both of you guys today. So with that, we shall sign off.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and have an amazing day.